Whereas Brandon Cooks made the right decision ultimately, in my opinion, to declare for this 2014 NFL draft. Another draft prospect probably wishes he could have declared for the 2013 NFL draft. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to because he was only a sophomore at the time. And he has gone from what was presumed before the start of the season to be a top five or at worst top 10 prospect to being a borderline first rounder and maybe not even being a first rounder at all, and that is Marqise Lee from the University of Southern California. Now, it's funny, in 2011, Robert Woods was a monster. He was all over the place, and he was an impressive player. In comes Marqise Lee as a freshman in 2012 and frankly overshadows Robert Woods, and Woods ends up being a second round pick to the Buffalo Bills. Marqise Lee comes into the 2013 season. You think, man, this guy is going to have a monster, phenomenal season. And as a result, he's going to easily establish himself as one of the best prospects in this entire draft, not just wide receivers, but the best prospects in this entire draft. And he'll be a top 10 pick. And then the 2013 college football season happened. USC didn't exactly have a great year, and neither did Marqise Lee. When you look at the positives that he brings to the table, I love his ability to be able to line up both inside and outside. I think at the NFL level, he could be an outside wide receiver. I think he's a guy that could also play in the slot. He's a guy that can make some big time plays in short areas with his ability to run after the catch. I love the fact that he has a little bit of a physical edge to him, similar to a Robert Woods. You look at these faster receivers, these kind of speed receivers, and sometimes you assume that they're kind of wussies or pussies, and as a result, they're afraid of contact. They shy away from the contact, and they're afraid to go make the tough catches over the middle and get those tough yards that you need sometimes. Well, Marqise Lee demonstrates none of that to me. This is a guy that did demonstrate some willingness to go over the middle. This is a guy that demonstrated a willingness to lower his shoulder and try and pick up those extra and tough yards. Sometimes that can be a great thing, and sometimes that can be a bad thing, yes, but I love to see that fighting spirit out of a wide receiver that you don't always get. I also look at him and think he has pretty good hands. He has the ability to go win the jump ball, catch the ball at the highest point. And he's a big play receiver. He's a guy that can make some big things happen with good but not necessarily elite speed and solid but not elite initial quickness. Now, I think he got a little bit better with his route running as his USC career has went on. Excuse me. Obviously, he could always get better at the NFL level, but it's definitely something that I view as a positive when it comes to his game. Now, in terms of the negative aspects for Marqise Lee, first is going to be his durability. When you look at him, you sit there and say, well, he looks like he has enough size to be an NFL wide receiver, but this is a guy that battled the knee problem throughout the 2013 season, which seemed to sap a little bit of his explosiveness and his effectiveness overall, and it's something that's going to concern some teams heading into this 2014 NFL draft. You also look at his size, and he's a little bit under 6 foot. So some teams are going to be concerned about his ability to line up on the outside and maybe will pigeonhole him strictly as a slot receiver at the NFL level. And frankly, if they pigeonhole him into that slot, they might look at guys like Beckham and Cooks as example and view them as better slot guys and more explosive slot guys than a Marqise Lee. He has good speed, but he doesn't have great speed. I saw what he ran in the 40 at the combine. I was actually a little surprised and a little disappointed because it seemed like he played a little bit faster. But when I went back and watched it some more, I'm like, nah, he has good speed, but he doesn't have elite speed. He's not as explosive as in 2013 as he was in 2012. And again, that may have something to do with the knee injury. But again, that does bring the concerns about durability. It really does. In terms of any other weaknesses to this game, it's not even so much necessarily a weakness for him, but one big stigma that he has to overcome is the fact that he is a USC wide receiver. And even when you look at Robert Woods, he had some injury problems in 2013. He had some flashes where he made some nice plays, I felt, but he wasn't consistently on the field week in and week out. And sure, he had to deal with some issues with the quarterback situation in Buffalo with injuries, etc. But USC wide receivers in recent years have not exactly come in and lit the NFL world on fire. See the Mike Williamses, the Dwayne Jarretts, the other Steve Smith, and guys like that. So there's going to be some concern about Marqise Lee. Is he just a USC system product, and is he really an elite NFL prospect or a big-time NFL prospect, or is he just a product of the USC machine and the USC offensive system? And that'll remain to be seen. In terms of an NFL comparison for him, I look at somebody like an Antonio Brown. I look at Marqise Lee, and I think he could be that type of wide receiver. I know he didn't have the greatest 2013 season. but I part attribute that to the knee injury. But he even showed some toughness and some willingness to be able to play hurt, which again was something that really endeared him to me and really impressed me. I have him right now rated as my number 5 wide receiver on my big board. However, there is still a certain part of me that believes that he might end up being the very best wide receiver out of all the wide receivers in this 2014 NFL draft class. It's amazing how much the perspective can change from 2012 to 2013, where after the 2012 season, I was saying, come to 2014 draft, Marqise Lee, no doubt about it, it's got to be a top 5 pick. Now I'm wondering if it's a top 5 pick in round number 2. But that's okay, because if you're sitting there and you have him drop to the early portion of round 2, you could potentially be getting a top 10 type of talent. At the beginning portions of round 2, you might be taking a little bit of a gamble, but that gamble could really, really pay off. Like I said before, this wide receiver class of 2014 is loaded at the top, and it's loaded all throughout. And Marqise Lee, if anything, is a little bit of a victim of the depth of this wide receiver class, but a really good prospect that I think could do some big time things at the National Football League level.